I love that we said we were going to do bloopers and I'm totally getting into like serious topics.
We can't help it. It's all relevant.
It is all relevant. So I was going back through the archives. Do you remember? Do you remember the shows you were on? The numbers?
Like all the shows I've ever done.
No, no. So like you remember I was your first podcast.
Hours. Yes.
Yes.
I was so like I was like over the moon. I was like, guys, all day long, I'm doing my first podcast interview. Yeah, you're my first.
Yes. So that was
And here we are.
number 32. And then I forgot that we had done a follow-up after you won
Like,
and you were number 58. You were episode 58. So this was like early days of the podcast because now I'm on like almost show 200. Um yeah, it's crazy that it's still going. But I was like, "Oh my God,
yeah, you're
we were
right.
little babies back then."
Yeah, we did do a follow-up. And then you were on my panel, like my really like big panel. I've been doing like small ones like that in like local libraries. That was like my first one was a venue and like an audience. Yeah.
So fun. And I had my friends come out, they're like, "You sound really smart." I'm like, "I'm always smart." No, they didn't say that. I just remember you had like makeup artists there, and I was like, "Oh, I finally found like I had my makeup done on point."
I did. You're right. That was a good time.
It
And here we
was.
are. I'm so glad that it's like full circle again.
Yeah, because we could not be doing panels like that for a while. So I'm glad that we got them
Yeah.
in because we had some great photo ops that really helped with
Those are some
promo.
good pictures. I still look at those pictures. I'm like, yeah, this was a pretty legit event.
Yeah, it was great. We got to do it
And
because I'm moving back to DC.
I'm ready, girl.
I
I'm
am. I
ready.
don't think you understand how ready I.
I felt that though. I felt it in my chest.
Can we just talk? Um, there's something about moving away from where you're meant to be that really tells you you're meant to go back,
Oh,
but as a different version of yourself.
even better.
Even better. So
Yeah.
let's use this kind of like recap, like what's been going on since 2019. I mean, we've kind of been texting. I've been, I'm an
Yeah.
Instagram stalker. It's what I do. But what's been up with you? What's getting you fired up? What are you working on?
It's interesting. I feel like you were mentioning earlier places that you're meant to be kind of make your way back to. And I don't feel that way with an actual physical location, but I feel that way with like specific passions.
Mm.
So thinking back from even my my first time on a podcast, which was episode 32 for you, like all of my passions and ambitions are exactly the same as they are today. And there's just been like different areas of progression, especially in the networking arena, especially in what my events have grown to be. I got a lot of advice. I'm like, you have to find a niche. And I just thought people were ridiculous back then. But like, I feel like that's kind of happened organically. So since then, I've been really harping on just doing a lot more panels specifically for women around any topic of mental health. The past few ones that I've had have been centered around self care, around mental health awareness month, but how to look for signs of knowing what you're needing in the first place before meeting those needs, imposter syndrome, and then we've got a few others coming up on the line as well. And that's just been like the main things I've been pouring myself into. And it honestly doesn't feel like it because I love it so much. And when I first met you, I had just gotten my license as an independent therapist. So I was still kind of like wet behind the ears in terms of being on my own, no supervision, just like finding my own flow in the clinical space, my one-on-one work. And I feel like that's come a very long way. And I feel like the niches that I've kind of ended up in are around like neuroscience, of course, mindfulness. That was like one area I was always interested in. Um, More DBT, a lot more trauma. And so like those are the areas that I've really been growing in professionally and just been attracting different clients. Like I work for a private practice as a contractor and I'll be starting my own very soon, early next year with a really good friend of mine who's also an amazing therapist. So we're like combining forces on this front business wise, and then we're going to help a lot more people and have a few more other colleagues coming on board with that too. So a lot of growth like in this space as a provider, but I also feel like that's been the best thing for me as a person because when I first started, I was like, I should really start to put some of these things into practice myself. So when I am teaching a different skill or technique to someone or giving an explanation around a certain symptom, I can not just speak from experience of having experienced similar things or similar circumstances, but also like, I've tried this out. Here's what works. Here's what's come up for me. Here's what I would advise in terms of moving forward for you. And so I just feel like it's made me such a more centered and balanced person. For personal life, a lot of moving parts, a lot of really tough experiences. I lost my father unexpectedly last Mother's Day. Like, saw him one week, got a call that Sunday, like, oh, I'm sorry, he's gone. And that really pulled the rug from beneath my feet, to say the very least. Um, I've experienced losses before. I think even the panel that you were on for me, I had just gotten news about my grandmother's health
Mhm.
declining, and she passed like a week after that. But I kind of knew that was coming. And this was just like, it was very traumatic for me. It was something that I was not sure I could ever bounce back from. And I had a lot of support in my life, people saying all the right things, but nothing like worked, nothing helped. And it took me a while to even get back to seeing clients again. I like stopped posting. I just kind of really disconnected from everything, which I think that was actually the best thing for me because I kind of didn't realize like how kind of like sucked into this virtual world I was in of just like, I've got to do this and I've got to post and I've got to be everywhere and do this and do that. Like, I think we all kind of found ourselves there during the pandemic, but not out of a choice.
Mhm.
And we had no choice. So we just kind of ended up there without autonomy because we had to. But to make the decision of, I'm just going to disconnect from the things that aren't that important essentially and just find my own way again and find my own self and my own time was like my biggest takeaway from that. And it's one of those experiences where you have to just let your body and your mind go through the motions, and that's not something that you can rush. And the biggest thing I just kept telling myself was that um I will eventually move on when I'm completely ready, and I'm just going to allow that to happen in its own time because it's going to happen. And what that looks like and how, like, I know that I'll be okay regardless, and although this is extremely uncomfortable, I'm still safe, I'm still fine. So just kind of like finding my own ways of anchoring myself and some semblance of some kind of balance was really important for me. I had to kind of pull in on different things I've been teaching people for, a good few years at that point and apply that to myself, my own personal life. Um, and just kind of like find my way back to like me at my core, which, I relied a lot on things that made me happy, like more creative things. Like I also love to sing, I love art, and I like found a lot of healing through that. My father was a high life musician from Ghana, actually. So like we really bonded over music. And so, I allowed like that space to really heal me essentially. And honestly, the vulnerability, like people now ask me, well, maybe you ask me this later, but so I won't say it now. But I feel like vulnerability was an area that I didn't know could coexist with also being strong, with
Mhm.
also being a professional or an expert of some kind. I 5 years ago would have thought that that's someone who's sure of themselves is just strong and
Mhm.
just, puts all their energy out there and they're driven and they're motivated. But I realize it's not one or the other. So I know people were really asking me, like, how are you doing? And I had to be honest, like, I'm not good. I don't know when I'm going to be good, but that's
Mhm.
just that, and I just kind of like let it all go. And then maybe the last month or so, I'm like, you know what? I feel more like myself, but a better version of myself. So,
Mm. I felt that too. I so appreciate the honesty around that. Um, that felt so grounded and rooted in your truth. And I know like a lot of people will go on podcasts or when they're posting on Instagram and they're literally smiling as they're telling the story of like trauma and growth
Mhm.
and vulnerability. And the thing that really stuck out to me is like you became your own anchor. And I think so much that is out there in the alternate metaverse universe, whatever it is, is about being engines, about moving, about being in action and going and doing and producing, that we don't have that center point to anchor to, that home base to come back to. And it sounds like, as awful as I know that experience was for you, and I have never lost a parent, so I can't know that pain, but I have similar pain in loss, knowing that it's even more intense for you. The fact that you were like, I need to sit with this and I need to not fake it and put the smile on. And you have a background in pageantry, which, is another skill set of smile through it. Everything's fine. Everything will be fine. But you knew enough about yourself and about mental health and about healing to not do that. And I want to commend you for that, because in that, others can look to you as an example of, I don't have to be okay today. I don't have to be okay tomorrow, but I know one day I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I think those are important reminders that we all need, honestly.
But nobody says it. Like, I know you say it, I say it as much as I can, but I just see such a veneer. And I thought we were past it. I thought that all of the stuff that's happening in the world, that has been continuing to happen, like, I thought we could have more honest conversations. But I think there's a fear around it. And I don't know, like, what did you feel when you were on that like precipice of like, I can either do what I know how to do, or I can do something different? Like, what allowed you to make that decision for you?
It felt more painful to try to push myself to be somewhere that I wasn't than to just sit in the pain that was there in the first place.
Say that again for the people in the back.
It felt more painful for me to push myself to be somewhere that I wasn't than to just sit in the pain in the first place.
Yeah. You weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
Amazing. And
I know.
I mean, in truth, like, yes, I stalk you on Instagram. I mean, I check in, whatever, but I had no idea. Like, we didn't have a check-in before we started recording. We just went into this because I wanted to see what would naturally and organically arise. And like, this is the growth that people go and spend tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars for a guru to enlighten them about.
True. So true.
So true. So when you're working with clients, what do you see as like the common resistance points that, if they could just see, or if they could just experience, it could be that breakthrough moment for them?
Yeah. Well, some of them I've seen this happen for, and some of them I would say are kind of sitting with the idea of this right now, but it kind of ties back to the experience I just walked us through, which is, to kind of just be more general at this point. Like, there are my symptoms, and that's tough. But then there are my symptoms, and then my reaction to the symptoms, and that makes it like double tough. So if we can just work through acceptance of like where I'm at right now in general, like my symptomology, my current challenges, and my circumstances, like not being a character trait, a defining moment in terms of like who we are at our core, and just accept that like that's just where our mind and body are right now. And if we can look at symptoms and emotions, big, small, hard, easy, as just our body's way of naturally communicating with us to help us meet those needs, I think we'd all be in a bit of a better place. I think it's easy to villainize our emotions. I think just through a lot of societal programming, like, when we're little, I remember like being shown the faces of like a sad face, smiley face, angry face, like, okay, decide like which emotion is what. What does this mean? And that was just kind of that. But then as we got older, like, oh, this isn't allowed. And being professional means like having it all together and never crying at work. And you've got to have a better work-life balance. You can't bring your issues to a professional space. And I always see more powerful moments when I can be very candid about kind of like where I'm at. If a client asks where I'm at, I'm going to answer honestly. I'm not going to take that and make it a therapy session about myself. I'm going to normalize being honest with where we are and modeling that for them. I'm going to normalize the fact that, yes, like being depressed is hard and I wish I weren't depressed, but I'm not a terrible person for being depressed, or I'm not doing something wrong because I have PTSD. And so it's just trying to changing our narrative around our experiences, I think, is a really big point to always come back to, or at least learn to get to.
Yeah. What I'm taking away from that is like, if we can be objective and curious about our emotions versus judging them and making them like a solid label that we're carrying around, we can actually heal and
Yeah.
make ourselves feel better too, and others in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like, I've heard this saying, I forget who said it, but like everything's a neutral statement and then we give it meaning. Like the neutral statement, for example, is like it's raining outside. The meaning could be like, I'm gonna sleep so well tonight. I love the rain, it's so relaxing. Or it could be like, oh my gosh, like the rain always makes me feel so down and so tired. I hate when it rains. So neutral statement is like, I need help. I'm struggling. And then we can assign that with it's because I'm not good enough, or I need to do this better, or be better, or improve this, or I just need the help and I'm allowed to get it. We all have our own challenges from time to time, and like having challenges and not always being happy, or, being at a point where I can say that I know exactly where I'm going in life. Like those aren't bad things. Those aren't bad characteristics. It's just a place that we're allowed to be because we're human.
Mm-hmm. And it's messy being a human.
Oh yeah, but it's supposed to be. It's absolutely supposed to be.
Yes.
Like we're meant to like come here and figure it all out and go through the emotions and go through the highs and lows, I guess, like or the ebbs and flows of life,
Mm.
and like always find ourselves in that.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the headwind tailwind?
No.
Okay, so this is another really good one.
Uh-huh.
So in life, we have headwinds. So the things, the obstacles that we have to overcome to become who we are, to get where we are. And then we have the tailwinds, the things that help boost us or accelerate or like allow us to go faster and easier. And the key to it is that one thing, one attribute could be both. It could be a headwind at a moment, a tailwind at another. Like, so I am an early riser. Now, it used to be an amazing tailwind because I worked on the East Coast and I could get, tons of stuff done before other people got going. Well, now I live in mountain time. And so I'm getting up and other people have already started to work. And if I get up earlier, then I got to go take care of the dog and then I can't be productive anymore. So it's not even that it's good or bad. It's just like there's friction that can come from it, or there's ease that come from it based on how you apply it. And when your situation changes, it might change in value too.
I love that. I'm going to use that in session.
Yeah, but if you think about
It's
like
really
even the childhood trauma or the experiential trauma that you have, in the moment, it feels like a heavy headwind. And as you're going through it, as you're healing, as you're experiencing it, you can be looking for those lessons and those nuggets that become your later tailwind.
absolutely. And I love that because I think that again, with every emotion being allowed, we sometimes look at our past experiences, whether it be in childhood or different phases of adulthood, different relationships, and we can hold space for the loss. And I think that's powerful and beautiful and so healing. But there's also something that we can kind of gain at some points too. I think that's a really tough one to kind of navigate through sometimes, because I don't think it's a conversation about something being meant to be, but it's like you said, like it's, one experience can come with like several different angles and avenues that we can kind of take and apply going forward to something else.
Yeah.
So, I was
Yeah.
talking to someone the other day about like being super hyper vigilant and stemming from childhood trauma, because that hypervigilance at one point like kept them safe.
Yeah.
And that's not a button now that they can turn off. And so I said, so in a way, the things that the average person might overlook, you might notice, whether it's someone else who is uncomfortable in a work meeting, or someone in your personal life having a hard time, or someone offering you a gift and you're really thinking about how much effort and passion they put into giving you something. And so like in a way, you're really able to hold space for the emotions of so many other people, not take it on as your own, but you notice, you observe,
Mhm.
you don't miss these things. And that's a beautiful part about life to take with you. And they were like, I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But that's hearing you say that is reminding me of that example.
Exactly it. It's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's like some of the things that you think were like the most painful and the hardest things have given you such a gift in the way that you show up for other people. And then if you realize I can show up
Mm-hmm.
that same way for myself, it's like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
the other things that popped up as you were talking, because I was having sessions last week where this came up, which is that you can have multiple emotions emerge at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't realize that they can experience multiple emotions. They think they have to be happy or sad, that they're not allowed to be excited and also grieving.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That comes up a lot as well in sessions. Like, you're allowed to feel everything or a lot of things simultaneously. And I think we're kind of taught that as well growing up. Like, are you sad? Are you hungry? Are you angry? And it's like, I'm everything right
All the
now.
things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and also, I don't think we have a really good language around emotions, because even in the
Hmm.
happy, sad, scared, whatever it is, like there are such nuances and people
Yeah.
don't know what it even means. They're like, well, it doesn't feel fully happy. It doesn't feel sad, but I don't know what that means. Do you see this pop up with your clients? Do I call them clients or patients?
Clients, yes.
Okay, let's go
Good
clients.
question. Yeah, clients. Yeah, I see it happen. So I do therapy and life coaching separately,
Mhm,
and I see it come up a lot in both spaces. And so what I really encourage people to do is try to connect with how something feels in their body, like
mhm,
kind of like more of like the somatic angle, essentially. Like we don't need a proper word or name, but like if you pause for a second, you can tell me how that feels and then look for that next time. And if we can kind of learn like, okay, this sensation usually means that I am anxious. If I'm anxious, that means I'm feeling afraid. If I'm feeling afraid, the need is I need a sense of security or a sense of safety.
mhm.
How do I connect with that or ask for support in that area? So I kind of help them look at it more as kind of like finding the trail to help them get to a need. That's what every emotion is in the first place. It's just your mind and body like letting you know where you're at and going forward from that angle.
Yeah, I love that. Finding the trail to get what you need.
Yeah.
It's like very Hansel and Gretel, but without the witch.
Without the witch at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Oh,
So don't leave yourself breadcrumbs, because then the birds can eat them. So I think I like to plant seeds when we have our next conversation. What is it that you're going to be most excited to share with me?
mm. I would say probably more action in other areas of passion. Because, like I said, like you caught me at a good time because I'm at a space now where I can like hold space for kind of like being out there and being active, like in the world. Whereas before, I was like, all I can do is hibernate, and that's the extent of like what my capacity is at this time. So my capacity has grown, which has been really helpful in my healing journey, and it feels good to be excited about the things that once meant something for me, but for the last like year and some change, just kind of felt more gray in terms of like my viewpoint because I would think I felt like I was more in survival mode, but I was really just kind of more into just kind of like sitting and not doing mode.
Hmm.
And so coming out of that, I'm starting to feel excited again about some uh some things.
Awesome. Awesome. So we focus on you first, and then if you can pass along a nugget of wisdom or maybe a tool or trick that you wish every person knew, what would it be?
Someone told me this, and I think about it at least once a day that regardless of what you're sitting with and how hard it is, your mind and body will move on when it's ready.
Hmm. We're just gonna breathe into that one. That's
Right?
amazing. So I have to share with you. Normally, when I do podcasts, I'm like up here, like I'm like the most chill and relaxed. So like I just imagine like what it's like for your clients sitting in session. I'm like, oh cool, yeah, we're just gonna chill. Everything's gonna be all right. We're gonna be good.
That is great.
You just mellowed out the Spitfire. Okay. That's a
Wow.
stamp. I have
It caught me at a good time.
so enjoyed catching up with you. And I can't wait to be back in DC and do in-person events. Like we
I'm
got some
excited.
fun stuff that we need to put our heads together on and make
We're
happen.
doing it.
We're doing it.
I'm
You've heard
excited to
it
have
first.
you. Yes. I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to bring our synergy back to life. Like I know we have it now, but like getting back together in the same room, same space, And I'm looking forward just to having you be a part of that and talking about that next time when I'm on. And yeah, I'm excited.
Amazing,
I'm excited to
amazing.
reconnect. Yes.
Wonderful. And if people want to check you out, where should they go?
Yes, they can follow me on Instagram at Andromeda Peters. It's Androm as in Mary, EDA Peters. And I also have a mental health page at Your Mind Matters Global, which I post a lot more mental health content and that's daily inspiration, and TikTok Andromeda Peters as well.
Wonderful, well, Andromeda. It was a pleasure as always. You are now, I think, our most frequented guest at 3, so you hold the record. Woohoo!
Yes,
That's what happens when we
yes.
start early on the podcast.
Take note, people. Take note. I'm kidding.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. And for all the Spitfires out there, make sure you go check out Andromeda, and y'all keep being awesome.